of Small Business and Tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be sharing my time today with my colleague, the honourable member from Nepean. With today's turbulent global economy, the motion before us is certainly timely, and the stakes in this debate are very, very high. Let me be clear, Mr. Speaker, the stakes are high and the economy is struggling because of the actions and inactions of the previous government. Indeed, the projected deficit for 2015-16 is a direct result of an economic program that left no contingency in place for the low crude oil prices, and it failed to take into account weakened global growth. The previous Liberal government left behind a $13 billion surplus in 2006. The Conservative government squandered that surplus and accumulated an additional $150 billion in new debt, while still managing to deliver the worst growth record since the Great Depression. All of that, coupled with no plan for supporting the middle class, no growth agenda, and no plan to invest. The only people who believe the previous Conservative government left behind a surplus are the Conservatives themselves. Canadians know better. Quite simply, what's at stake is a new direction for our economy. During the election campaign, Canadians said it was time to make meaningful investments in people and in our communities all across the country from coast to coast to coast. After 10 years of weak growth, this government has a plan to grow the economy and create jobs by focusing on the middle class, investing in infrastructure, and helping those who need it the most. We are committed to leaving our children and grandchildren with a more sustainable and prosperous economy. But our plan needs to be realistic, sustainable, prudent, and transparent, Mr. Speaker. That's why we have continued to listen to Canadians through the government's pre-budget consultations. When we set out to do these consultations, we wanted two things. The government wanted to involve as many Canadians as possible, and we wanted to do things a little differently. I think that the numbers really do tell a story. To date, the combined total number of Canadians we have reached through our channels amounts to more than 150,000 individuals. What's more, the Department of Finance has received more than 3,500 formal submissions. That's more than triple what the Conservatives managed over a 6-month time frame in just last year in 2 months. Since early January, the Minister of Finance connected with university students across Canada through Google Hangout and Facebook Live on 3 separate occasions, giving the government valuable insight into the current concerns of young Canadians from across the country. More than 8,000 students tuned in to hear from the Minister of Finance at Dalhousie University Facebook Live event. And since then, many, many more have replied online. The second Facebook Live event in Calgary, the government had over 70,000 people tuning in live to watch the Minister of Finance take questions from students in a town hall format. That, Mr. Speaker, is openness and transparency, and that is doing things differently. The pre-budget consultation hashtag, PBC16, is still being used widely by Canadians to discuss ideas on how to implement our plan to grow the economy, and by commentators and MPs from across the political spectrum. Through these pre-budget consultations, we are engaging with Canadians, looking for input on how the federal government can support the middle class and those working hard to enjoy it, the federal government can best invest, how we can best invest in infrastructure to grow the economy, and how we can ensure that the most vulnerable do not get left behind again. Personally, I want to assure Canadians that we are listening, and we hope that this renewed interest in the political process by Canadians will make a better country for all of us, for our families, and especially for our communities. I know that Canadian economy is going through a difficult period, and I know that Minister Morneau is doing all he can to support people affected by the crisis, specifically those living in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and my home province of Newfoundland and Labrador. We believe that in the face of this challenge, there is a real opportunity, an opportunity to put in place conditions that create long-term growth, an opportunity to do something that the previous government failed to do in their 10 years in office. That's why in the coming weeks, we will be announcing a new advisory council on economic growth. It will be composed of people from various backgrounds with experience in both the private and public sectors. And it won't be just composed of Canadians, Mr. Speaker. It will include leaders and citizens from other countries, people with global experience in growing successful and inclusive economies. The mandate of this advisory council will be to help us think about how we can best tackle our longer-term economic challenges. Mr. Speaker, I am personally proud to serve in a government that is thinking critically about the kinds of investments that we need to make to spur the growth in our economy. Although the previous government squandered a $13 billion surplus and added $150 billion to the country's debt, they also managed to have the worst growth record since the Great Depression. Members across the aisle should remember that it's their party's record that is the economic legacy of their 10 years in office. Mr. Speaker, all members should agree that investing economic short growth is the best way to improve our country's outlook in medium and long term. The previous government made the illusion of responsible fiscal management while racking up debt and posting surpluses based on inflated growth projections. Now is the time to be better, Mr. Speaker, to make meaningful investments while being realistic about our fiscal situation. Together, we can overcome the challenges we face and to seize the opportunities to grow our economy together. So where does the path to prosperity lie? It lies through delivering the kind of real change that all Canadians can be proud of. It lies through investing in our economy to create jobs, strengthen the middle class, and help those working hard to join it. It comes through committing to a higher bar for openness and transparency in government. And it comes from delivering on all our commitments to Canadians. We are confident, Mr. Speaker, that our plan will accomplish these goals. And that is why the government is optimistic about our country's prospects going forward. Given that, I encourage all members to vote against this motion. The official opposition has had its chance to govern, and now it's our turn. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.